Microphone. Hello, hello. Guess if you are on here, then you can see me. And the monitor's a little delayed, so everything I do here seems to show up a little late. Don't know if that's going to affect anything how this goes, but here we are. You may not hear anything until 1 p.m., so give us one more minute. Where's the second one? It's a button, and it'll switch between the two. Since we're going to be looking at some prints, I've got the main camera on me, and then the second camera will be zoomed in a little bit when we look at the prints themselves, so you can see them a little bit better. Can someone give me a thumbs up or something in the chat so I know that you can hear me? Perfect. Thank you. All right. It is 1 o'clock. We'll give it a couple more minutes for people to hop on. For those of you that are very prompt, I appreciate that. What we're going to do today, a little bit different than the last stream, which apparently was almost exactly 2 years from today. We are not in the darkroom, obviously, since I have only a temporary darkroom and it's a little cramped for a live video at the moment, but that may change. What we're going to do is some Q&A, so use the chat to pose any questions about me, the channel, darkroom work, photo in general, whatever you want to do. And we're going to sprinkle that with some critique of prints that people have sent in. For those of you that are unaware of that, I have a Discord channel that a member started for me a few years ago. And this being the first print critique, I thought we'd go ahead and just open it up there, just see how it goes, both in the live stream with just the logistics of it, and the kind of the response from you all for a print critique. If it works again and does well, then we will open it up to a larger general call, and you can send me a print and we'll talk about it. And we'll schedule that for when we do. Real quick, before we really get going, I would like for you all to know, apparently there are ads. When I did the live stream 2 years ago, there weren't any ads midstream. YouTube does that now. I don't really see at this point any way to control that. So I see 2 buttons where I can put one in, so I guess I can schedule them. But otherwise, yeah, you may see ads pop up at some point. I don't know anything about them. I have to admit, I never watch other people's live streams, so I don't know your all's experience as the viewer, what's going to happen. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, question. Approximate ISO of photographic paper. It depends on the paper. Could be 1.5, could be 3 in general. Some of them might be 6, but I find like RA4 tends to be around 3. But that's Kodak's RA4. Fuji could be a little bit different. There are ISO charts available for Ilford paper, but ISO speed for paper doesn't necessarily match up with film. But if you're trying to meter for a pinhole camera, I'd probably err on the side of 1.5. And if that's way overexposed, then change it to 3. So hopefully that helps your pinhole camera stuff. But again, it depends on the paper. I don't know what FOMA paper speed is. I have no experience shooting FOMA or printing on FOMA. And even with Ilford, it depends on whether you're using like warm tone or the multi-grade, because warm tone is a full stop slower. So take that in mind. Yeah, someone here says shoot Ilford at 6. Is that Ilford RC multi-grade? Is that fiber base? I don't know. Okay. If there aren't any immediate questions, we're going to go ahead and look at one of the prints. When I had people send this in, I asked also include just a little note to kind of tell us what it is that you want to get feedback on. When I was teaching and as a student, I would see a lot of ineffective critiques, let's say, because it was just the instructor kind of droning on about what they liked or didn't like about the work. And as someone receiving feedback, that wasn't very helpful. So what I try to do instead, there's actually a name for it. It's called the Liz Lehrman method. She was a choreographer and came up with this critique method, which, granted, works better with people in the room. But it's more of a guided, I am looking for specific feedback. So I want you to give that feedback so I can now go back and rework the idea and make it stronger or more effective. So people have given me notes. I've not looked at anything yet, except one, because there was some water damage. So Forrest, your package got a little damp on the way here, and there's going to be some blue ink staining on the edge of the print, just FYI. Also, please don't use whatever this foil tape is. Both my wife and I cut our fingers on that tape. But I haven't looked at any of these yet. There should be notes in there telling me what they want, whether it's a technical feedback, artistic feedback, whatever. So we'll see. Question, I'm interested in toning some prints with very slight gold brown. I see guides for sepia toning, but I want something much more subtle. Any recommendations for resources to learn this? Yeah, so for toning with sepia, I haven't done a video on sepia specifically, but there's lots you can do with that. If you just want a subtle warming and you don't want to go full sepia, It really depends on what time you have the bleach active. So I would recommend just kind of testing it a little bit and take a scrap print or a test strip or whatever, put it in the bleach and time how long it takes to get to full bleached. And then do an identical test print or strip and do half that time, and then a quarter of that time, an eighth, and a 16th, and maybe even a 32nd of that time, right? Just keep cutting it in half, and you'll get just a little bit less bleach until, or all the way up until it's just very, very slightly bleached, maybe not even visibly bleached. And then put that in the toner and put each one in there and see what the effect is that you like. And if you want a little bit cooler warm tone, you can do what's called a reverse sepia, where you put it in the toner first, then bleach, again, full, partial, whatever, and then back into the toner. And that'll give you some good effects. Other than that, I would probably, like if any of that is way too much, then use a warm tone developer on your paper. And a warm tone paper with a warm tone developer are going to give you warm results without toners being involved. What film do you think most closely resembles Tri-X apart from Kodak? None. Kodak has a very unique way of displaying or separating the highlights versus the shadows. And I actually found most films from like FOMA and some of the other brands looked more like Ilford. Like they all have kind of the same highlight tonal separation as Ilford. So really Kodak is Kodak and everything else is Ilford or trying to be Ilford, would be my opinion. So Zatax, hope that answered your question there. Oh yeah, my wife chimed in. We're so talented because we cut our thumbs on tape. All right, and then to make this even more sporting, I got a knife. So we'll see. We'll see if we have blood involved today. Hopefully not, but it is one of my projects, so there's 50-50 chance. How well does paper age? Not very. Well, that's a generalized answer. Storage conditions, of course, are going to be a major factor of any kind of paper aging, because hot, humid environments are going to fog paper far faster than in the refrigerator or frozen. RA4 paper doesn't have a very good shelf life after the expiration date. Refrigerated or frozen will help, but if left at room temperature, you'll get maybe a few months before you start seeing some age problems. Black and white, RC paper, not very good. Fiber paper, better. And among the fiber papers, silver chloride papers like Adox, is it Lupin? Lupex, and Lodema, and formerly Kodak Azo. Those all had really, really good keeping properties because they had no or very little silver, bromide, and chloride, and those are the ones that age faster and tend to fog faster, and silver chloride doesn't. So you have 25-year-old paper from Ilford stores. Yeah, I mean, you can try some benzotriazole to your developer to see if that prevent some fog, or really pump in some potassium bromide. Bromide will make your print a little bit warmer, and benzotriazole will make it cooler. But those are going to be your like fog suppressants. Question: traditional darkroom chemistry safe for septic systems? That's a good question. One I want to find out because I am now on a septic system in this house, and I'm trying to limit how much stuff I put in there, and then using products like Ridex to beef up the enzyme action down in there. I mean, if you're developing a roll a month, I wouldn't worry about it. A roll a week, I think you'll be okay. But if you're doing a lot, roll a day, you might want to consider trying to find some kind of chemical disposal company or service from your municipality. You'll need to treat your system. Yeah, you'll need to treat it. I mean, you should treat it anyway. But how often will you need to treat it if you're putting fixer down there, which you shouldn't do with the silver, but like spent developer? I don't know. And I've not found good answers either. Nothing really seems to talk about septic systems, even from Kodak, which tends to have the best kind of documentation for that sort of thing. Anyone else nervous? Oh, about looking at your prints? Ha! No, I try to be kind, but I also try to give you feedback that is useful, so that you can go back and work on it with good ideas on how to improve, either aesthetically, technically, idea-wise, whatever. So, all right, let's look at the first one, and then we'll answer some more questions. All right. Let's see. I got a couple prints in the last year or two. Shooting more than I can print. Yep. Moved twice. Yep. Done that. So let's see. So we got a flower RA4 print. Very nice. So this is going to be our RA4 print that we're going to talk about. And then we have black and white. So let's see, what do we want from this? There's a little more conceptual. The concept is called As Far As I Could Get. And it's stolen from an artist named John DeVola. So they want the same location in the nude. Like you were in the nude or the people were in the nude? Because I have never gone out and shot nude, despite the name of the channel. Have I done any nudes? I would say the closest are just the intros to the videos as being a nude model for myself. Yeah, that's the closest. Okay, so what do we want? Coming back, probably interest in artistic reactions. Okay. So we want reactions to the artistic aspect. So I guess it depends. Let's look at the flower one first. So it depends really on what the artistic intent is, which they did not indicate what artistic interests we're going for, like our intent. So what I would do, or what I would kind of think about if I were viewing this is, based on this, I'm going to start immediately thinking about similar work and how it was talked about and presented. In this case, it would probably be more in the modernist vein, where we're looking at form. There are people like Robert Mapplethorpe, who did a whole big series on flowers. I've talked about his work. In fact, I believe I showed his book in one of my book review, like what's on my bookshelf videos. For those of you not familiar with Robert Mapplethorpe, he was a fashion photographer, very influential in his time in the 70s and 80s. He died in the 80s from HIV. He was very active in the BDSM scene in the LGB community in New York, I think. And a lot of his work is about that. So you got to be very, very careful if that's not stuff you want to look at, especially if you're at work, checking stuff out on the computer. Be very specific that you want to see Mapplethorpe's flowers. because you will get stuff like man in a polyester suit. Google that on your own time. So stuff like that, it's very much about the aesthetics of the print, going back to this piece. And so that's what I tend to think of when I look at work like this. I'm not thinking about like, what does a flower mean? What does it represent as a connotation, or evoke certain ideas of flower? Because the colors in this don't have the connotation of like romantic expression or anything like that. So it comes down to aesthetics of the print. So we've got red against yellow, not typical colors that are put together for background. A lot of people do, I want to say, like complementary colors, so red and like a cyan background or something like that. Well, I lose my train of thought if I keep thinking on tangents. And bear with me, I do tend to go on tangents when I talk to students about stuff, because I tend to draw from a lot of other artists to point you to look at their work for inspiration. And I try to think of artists that maybe do a similar work, but a very different approach, so that you can think about, are you using the best approach for what you're trying to accomplish? In this case, like with flowers, you've got Mapplethorpe, which is probably one of the best known because he did such a large variety. But you would probably have a lot of the modernists at some point photographing flowers. I mean, I can think of some from Weston and Adams, Strand, and that sort of group, but they do it very, very differently with color and aesthetic images. I get other people to mind, and I'm going to draw a blank on his name because he did all the dye transfer stuff, a lot of it here in Kentucky at Red River Gorge. If I come up with his name, I'll mention it. I've got a book of his somewhere on the shelf behind me. So when we're looking at form, we're talking about things like, are we moving in the direction or moving the viewer's direction around the image? Are we drawing strong shapes, formal shapes, geometric form, and things like that? And so I think this image in particular, it's pretty good with that. I'd maybe crop it a little bit because of the weight of the image with the flower. It's not like up in a third enough for me to think, okay, I'm going to use the rule of thirds, weighted at the top, a lot of negative space at the bottom. It's not up enough to give me a third of negative space and 2/3 flower. So I'd probably square it off and use this diagonal line formally as just like a frame filling element, and really pull that in there. So I'm going to use this for a second. It's kind of like a border. So get in there, like maybe cut that off a little bit instead of all that down there. I'd trim it with the easel and make that a little bit maybe more visual centered. But otherwise it's pretty good. Like the color on it's fairly good. It's a little on the yellow side, which I know is influenced heavily by the background. But just looking at the color in the center, which is probably going to be a little bit more on the blue, I think it's dulled a little bit by just having a little bit of a yellow cast to it. But that's more technical. Aesthetically, though, I think this is a pretty strong image of a flower for that formalist sort of view. I would just probably square that off a little bit. So I hope that helps. Okay, real quick before we do the other one, do we have any other questions? Nope, not so far. All right, so now we're looking at this one, which is a square. And what we have here is a mountain landscape. We've got, and let's see if this will zoom in a little bit. We've got two little happy people frolicking off in the distance. And I don't get any like, sorry, I'm going to hold this hold this where we can both see it. I will admit, this one gives me more like hipster vacation vibes. Not a whole lot in terms of like, are we trying to make a statement? Unless this was part of a larger series with context, which I don't have here. From an aesthetic point of view, everything works pretty well. I don't mind the tree going up on this side, weighted towards this side of the image, but this little guy right up here, which I don't know if you can see that. There's a little black speck up in there where a branch was coming in. That little guy needs to come out. So that can either be done through retouching the negative, and just because it's against a white sky anyway, and just getting rid of that, or cropping in. Let me use this. Cropping in just a little bit to get rid of that. Either that or getting that whole tree in there to balance this tree on this side and then have one on that side, and kind of frame the sky a little bit better. What we do have is a large area of out of focus plant right here. And that is visually interrupting because that's putting a barrier between me and the subjects, which are the two people back there. Because it seems, I don't know, almost intentional, but not quite intentional enough to give me the kind of voyeuristic vibe where like I'm the camera or from the camera watching people without their knowledge. In which case I would want more of this out of focus area as kind of like the idea that I am hiding. But then it's if that's not the intent, then it doesn't need to be there at all, because it's just visually disturbing that it's kind of overlapping one of the people. It's going up into the trees, but it's not enough of the frame. It's not placed well in the frame in terms of left or right or balanced in some fashion. So if that is an important element to the image, and feel free to comment if it is, if that's an important element, I think it needs to be more of it and more direct and clearer that that is an element of the photograph. So, and then the letter seems to indicate that these people may have intended to be nude, and that really gives me that voyeuristic vibe that I want to see, and I want more of that to partially obscure the view of everything so that I know it's intentional. So hopefully that helps. I think this is an idea worth exploring more. Just think about some of those visual elements like balancing or getting rid of that little thing up there, and then the foreground element as well, and how much of that you really want, and put some in there, or take it out if that's not what you want. But voyeuristic vibe is definitely what I'm getting from that, and that can work really well. Depends on the body of work and the series that you're doing. All right, let's get that out of the way. All right, any other questions before we look at some more prints? I'll give you a moment and drink some of the nectar of heaven here. Wouldn't you all just love to be in my class and listen to me drone about that all the time? My students would be envious of your position of being able to just turn me off. I'm sure. All right. Okay, so we got two more landscapes here. Who have we got? Do you have a name? Oh, Tiffany. Well, you were nervous and now it's your turn. We'll just put you right up front, top of the list here. Am I still teaching at the moment? No, I'm not. I have a regular day job and I'm not going to talk about it. So with teaching is a weird, academia in general. It's it's a weird job market. Because unless you're in academia, you probably don't realize, like, you think professor is professor, but it's not. There's different tiers, mostly tenured or not tenured. So senior faculty, junior faculty. And the university I was at, junior faculty do not get like health benefits, and you don't have a vote in meetings, even though you can attend and voice your opinions. You have no voting power. And you may have a higher class load, but also more committee work than tenured professors, because universities, there's teaching and research. I was at a research university, so that means faculty is expected to do research. Senior faculty are provided more time for research, in this case, art making. And that takes away from time that they're required to teach, so they have a lower class load, and committee work. So junior faculty, they have less research time, usually 0, which means any art making you want to do has to be on your own time. And then more classes and more committees. The committees could be in the department, in the college, like the College of Fine Arts or Theater and Music and Art, and then potentially the university as a whole. So as junior faculty, I did not have health insurance. My wife did through her job. And then we were going to have our first kid, and we could use her insurance for the birth, but then she was going to be a stay-at-home mom after that. So I needed a job with health insurance benefits, which we found out at the birth we needed, because my oldest son had a blocked heart valve and needed a couple surgeries for that pretty early. So I haven't taught since then in an official capacity, which is why I started the channel, because I had the need for a teaching outlet for all the stuff that I had put together as a professor. So hopefully that. What kind of academic am I? Unemployed? No, what field? So yeah, I taught photography. So I went to college at the University of Kentucky and got a Bachelor of Fine Art in Art Studio, concentration in photography. And then after that, I went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, and got a Master's of Fine Art in Photography. And then that is the requirement. There's no PhD in the US for art history, but not art studio. So master's is the highest degree, which you're now educationally qualified to teach at a university in the art department. So yeah, I taught art classes, people who were there to get either a degree in art or take it as an elective. And I did mostly film, because that's just where my passion lies. But I've done digital classes as well. It depends on the class. Mostly intro, because that's where the junior faculty would be, and then the senior faculty would teach like the 400, 500 level graduate students, and the upper art classes, the more advanced classes. So I was relegated to photo 1 mostly, and photo 2. And that could be film based or digital based, depends on how the program's set up, and how it was set up then, because it's different now, according to the people that I know who still work there. Well, you're an academic in France. See, I don't know anything about how academics work in other countries. But yeah, it is a weird system. It's also very difficult to get in, because this field specifically, photography, there are far, far, far more applicants than there are positions. Jobs come open typically twice a year, once during the fall semester. That's the usual time. And then if somebody decides Well, what'll happen is the the positions will come open in fall. That's usually from people retiring or whatnot. And then if you're already teaching and you get one of those because you want to move somewhere else for whatever reason, then in the spring there's another job opening spree from the people that are leaving because they got jobs in the first round. And it takes months and multiple interviews and whatnot. But there are, I don't know, last year I feel like there were only 5 positions that I saw posted nationwide. But there were at least 27 people that graduated with me just in the one class I was in. So there's a lot of people and very few positions. So it is weird. It is very weird. Okay, Tiffany, what are you looking for? So you're beginner. I'll be gentle. I'll be nice. And right now it's just basic exposures. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about what may help. Just exposure times, and you have filters, and you need to learn how to use them. Okay. So print 1, HP5, orange filter number 16, developed in Rodinol, printed on Arista Pearl. Number 2, are they numbered? Number 1, okay. I believe I used one of my camera's meter to take a spot reading somewhere between the far mountains and the sky. You don't like how this one came out, and you're not sure if it's because the negative is difficult to work with. It's underexposed. Just seems very muddy and dark. It's underexposed. If I knew what I was doing more, I would try to make the mountains between the foreground and the background a little lighter. I agree. I would like to make the river a little lighter as well, similar to the tone of the sky. Okay, so this is the image that we're working with. Okay. And we are a bit underexposed in the camera. What I would recommend you do, there's a couple of different reasons why that may be. There's a very good chance that you allowed the camera's meter. Oh, you know what? I'm holding this up to the wrong camera, guys. Okay, number 2. There we are. So the camera's meter, or the camera's going to automatically set your film speed to 400 because it's going to read the DX coding on the canister and set that film speed. But the meter and the camera may not actually give the best exposure for 400 speed film. And there's a few different reasons why that might be. The age of the camera, so the sensitivity of the metering cell may not be quite what it was. The battery could be dying for that portion. The shutters could be slightly off, the shutter speeds. The aperture markings aren't exactly precision. So what I would say is you probably need to expose this or set the meter setting manually to 250. I think 2/3 of a stop, more exposure in general would probably help your film not be as underexposed. But that's overall. Where you meter is also going to make a big difference. So you spot metered. You said somewhere between the far mountains and the sky. So somewhere in this area. I would recommend, if you're going to spot meter, I would do kind of an averaging, because at this point you're not going like full zone system or anything like that. You're not going to change your development per image. So I would meter your dark areas, which are probably going to be the shadow area and the undergrowth, and your important highlight areas, which are going to be maybe the clouds. They can probably the darker parts of the clouds, I would recommend. You're going to meter both of those, and you're going to put either your shutter speed or your aperture in between those two readings. So if this says f4 and this says f16, then set your aperture halfway between those two. That's what I would recommend. Or your shutter speed the other way around. If this says 1,000th and this says a 30th of a second, for example, set your shutter speed halfway between, and use whatever the aperture for both is, and that's going to help you kind of average those two dark and bright areas out. It's not going to be perfect, but I think that'll be better, because if you're setting it up here, you're exposing for up here, and down in this darker area, you're not getting enough information. The other option is just meter the darker areas, expose for that. Your highlight areas are going to be a little hot in the darkroom, and you either filter or print, burn the print for that. But you'll have the information in the negative. If you underexpose, that information is gone. You're just not recording it, and you're not going to save it in any kind of manner in the darkroom. But overexpose, if this were a little bright, so dark on the negative, bright in the print, you can usually save that. That information's there. You're just not printing long enough to get it out, so you have to burn your sky areas in. So I would say that would help most. The metering, so that you're not underexposing your film. The actual framing of the image, I think you did a fantastic job with framing. This is a very well seen landscape. I like it quite a bit. Personally, I tend to I'll move the horizon down and get more of the sky, or I'll move it up, get less of the sky, more of the foreground. But in this case, you're running about 2/3 of the image being the foreground, a third being the sky. That's good use of the rule of thirds. I like the central placement of the river through here. But let's get your camera exposure under control, and I think you'll have a much easier time printing. Without using any filters in the darkroom, you're getting about a grade 2 or 2 filter effect, and that's fine. Your sky, I think, came out pretty good because of the camera filter you used. But yeah, it just comes down to underexposing your film. You need to beef that up. I don't know what enlarger you're using. You don't say on here. Using 50mm enlarging lens. Okay. You're getting vignetting. That's what I'm going to talk about next. The 70mm lens will reduce the vignetting, but it'll require you to move the head of the enlarger really. Oh, I'm on the wrong camera again. Sorry, guys. I'm learning how to switch between cameras. The enlarger head's like a certain height with the 50mm. You'll find that it's a lot higher with the 70. As long as your enlarger can handle that, the 70 will reduce the vignetting. The vignetting could come from usually two different reasons. A low quality lens will definitely do it. So if you're using like the Besslar 50mm 3.5, those are terrible, or any kind of equivalent thereof. They're awful, and that'll getting a better lens will definitely help eliminate that, and stopping down to like f8 or f11. The other reason could be if it's a condenser enlarger. You might want to check and make sure the condensers are in the right position, because if they're not, you'll get vignetting. Okay, let's look at the next one. So this is the second one, and we've got another mountain view here. What are we looking for? Shot and developed similarly, same film, same paper, developed in PQ Universal. You're probably not going to see a difference between the two developers, to be honest. You like how this one came out. It was easier to print than the first one. It's not as underexposed. That's probably why. I'm not sure if it's possible or how, but I would have liked to make a little more separation where the trees are in the very center of the grassy field against the mountain. Yeah, I can see where you might want the trees either lighter against the background or darker against a lighter background. But since they're the same trees here, so she's talking about this area, this group of trees, then this, you're really not going to get that, unfortunately, because they are the same color, and there's no way to separate that. If they were different colors in nature, like they were all red and these were green, without a filter on the camera lens, they're going to come out the same tone of gray. you'd have to use a colored filter to change that. It's like a green filter would make this lighter, this darker. Red filter would do the opposite, this lighter, this darker. But if they're all green and they're all close to the same green, you're not going to separate them. There's nothing you can do there other than judicious dodging and burning, which would be a pain in the butt. You know, sorry about that. Potentially a blue filter would accentuate the haze and make this part darker, but or lighter, and keep this dark because it's going to darken the green, but like lighten the haze. But I don't think there's enough distance between these two in the real world where this will have enough haze, atmospheric haze, to really get lighter with a blue filter. So I don't think that would work. Let's see. Yeah, they kind of blend in with the mountain. Yep. Also, the trees stop 3/4 of the way up the mountain, but you can't tell as much. There, a red filter probably would have helped because it would have darkened the trees. And then if it had enough exposure, this would have come out a lighter gray. So maybe a deep, like the number 16 filter probably would have helped a little bit. Assuming you didn't use that. Though it looks like you probably did. Maybe a red filter would have done something. I think the upper part of the mountain should be a little lighter to distinguish the trees and the bare rocks. I agree. I think the underexposure is not helping you. And I think maybe a red filter would have helped instead of the yellow when you were shooting it. All right. Let's see. Hopefully that helps. Tiffany, I hope that didn't sound too hard on you. But it is just beginner stuff. You're just learning how to do this stuff with the camera, getting your exposure under control. All right, let's see what we got here. In RA4 Blixer Part A, the clear one went bad. Yep, it does. Is it true a regular black and white fixer can be used instead? Oh, in a Blix. No. So color film does not use an acid fixer. It's a neutral pH fixer. I would just get some new Blix. Blix is cheap. Just get some new. You'll be better off. Trying to get the proportion right. I don't think it'd be worth the hassle of trying to do it. Just get some new Blix. If the A went bad, then the B probably did too. You just can't tell from the color. You have an Omega B8 enlarger. Yeah, so that's probably a condenser, and the condensers, I want to say the B8 is a medium format enlarger, so the condensers should be adjustable or replaceable, and they are different if you're going to do medium format versus 35 millimeter. So make sure you're using the correct condenser and it's in the right position, and that should help get more even exposure on that print. Yeah, I'm the live Q&A. Hopefully that does pretty well. Okay, I've just realized we've been on here 45 minutes. I've gone through 2 people. We're going to look at some more prints, and I'll try to answer some questions. I told you I can ramble. You would not be surprised. You'd be probably not very surprised at how much of my video ends up being cut out because I ramble on camera, because I don't script anything. I tried once. It sounded fake. It sounded like I script, and that's not how I did my classes, right? I did my classes just talking about the subject. So there's a lot that I cut out when I edit the video down. And even then, some of the rambling comes in. It happens. Oh, my wife's coming on here. I would not be surprised if... What, if I cut myself with this while I'm opening a print? Me neither. Thanks for the confidence, hon. printed on ultrafine matte fiber paper, shot with an RB67, maybe HP5. No indication we're looking for. Oh, that's nice, Ryan. I like that. Okay, so here's the image. Some grain silos, elevator. I don't know. Grain stuff around here. I feel like I know where this is. Granted, there are quite a few, but I feel like this is down 27 if you go south of Danville. Maybe not. The if wasn't supposed to be there. So you would not be surprised. Oh, you would not be surprised to know that I ramble and cut off most of my videos. Yeah. So my wife knows me well enough. She is very supportive, I will say. My wife is very, very supportive of my efforts on YouTube, mostly because it keeps me out of her hair while she's trying to paint, because she does watercolor. It is very nice watercolor. All right, so this is from Ryan. Ryan lives in my general neighborhood, a town south of me. So we've gone to a camera show together and done some other stuff. And we've not really shared work, so this is nice. It did get a little crinkled in the mail down here on the side. Ryan is working a lot on black and white reversal from in-camera shots on a big camera and doing portraiture and stuff. It's pretty cool stuff. He and I need to get together and do some. But we'll look at this print for a little bit. So again, this is more towards like the modernist, formal type photography that you see from people like Weston and Strand and things like that. It's very much about form, showing the item or showing the subject and elevating it through the photograph to something beyond itself. In this case, it becomes like a monolithic sculpture. And it's really good. He's got very good exposure in the camera. He's got great tonality. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of matte paper. That's just me, but I feel like the velvety texture of the shadow area works really well with the tonal range in the deeper midtones. So it does pretty good there. Someone else to look at with work like this would definitely be the Beckers, which were a German couple. Thanks, you like it too. Oh, it is south of Danville on 27. I think I've gone by a couple of times. I've thought about stopping to shoot it. So the Beckers were a German couple who photographed grain elevators and other industrial items, but they photographed them all identically and then put them up in big grids, so it looked like the same image over and over, but it wasn't. It was always a different item or a different location. This doesn't feel like the way the Beckers would do it. This feels very much more like the way you would see from early to mid 20th century, mostly American photographers like Strand and Weston. And I like this very much. This is pretty good. There's nothing that I would necessarily change with this. Maybe coming in a little tighter to make it more monolithic and dominating in the image space. But overall, I think this is a really fantastic photograph. And now I need to go down there and make one of my own. All right, who have we got now? Sam. All right, so Sam is Pacific Northwest. He is quite accomplished on his own, so I don't know if there's going to be much feedback I can give him that he doesn't already know. Tape this up good. And I want to say congratulations to Sam. He just had a show open recently. That's fantastic. I focused more on the YouTube stuff lately. I've not completed enough work to put together a show, so he's further ahead than I am at the moment. Oh, goodness gracious. We got a few. All right, let's look through. Oh, very nice. Okay. Did he include anything about what we want feedback on? Nope. All right, Sam, we're going into this cold. Okay, so we got the same image twice here, but in two different print styles. We got a traditional black and white, and then it looks like we got a lith print. I've not done any lith printing myself. I've never gone through the process of it. I don't feel like my images are necessarily right for that. All right, so this first one we have, again, this is a very formal element image that is very much that modernist vein of viewpoint. It is about very much the centrality of that central part, the middle part being very much in the center with symmetrical lines. I would have liked to have seen this be maybe a touch more precise with the angles of the sidewalk to the door and everything like that, to really emphasize that otherworldliness of being so symmetrical. But otherwise, it's a fantastic photograph. Tones are great. He's got great shadow and mid-tone separation and highlights. So strong image overall. And then we have included with it the lith version. Oh, a Chrome print. Ooh, I want to hold on to those. They're getting quite rare. Don't send that to me. Kids will find a way to destroy it, even if I hide it from them. Okay. So then we have a lith print version of the same thing. Of course, it gets much more higher contrast, which can work, depends on what you want to do. So when you get something this high contrast, I start thinking about like some of these gothic setting horror films and stuff like that. At least on the monitor that I can see this on, the midtones really open up with this, but in real life, this is pretty dark area in the image. In fact, let's see if I can mimic what I see here. No, not really. But yeah, same image, much higher contrast, grainier. Like that lith printing really accentuates all of the micro contrast in there and really makes it pop. Looks a lot more gothic in that. Okay, what else have we got? Okay, we got another one that's doubled up. So let's look at the traditional print. Okay, so here we have a beautiful landscape. We have got some clouds and fog in what I assume are the Pacific Northwest Mountains. And it's very, very nice. It's hard to know if the fog here is representative of how dark the fog was in the original scene. I'm trying to tilt this forward because there's a lot of tone in the sky that I think that my light is kind of washing out. It is a very nice print. I feel like this is flat compared to his vision. So we're going to look at the lith, which I feel like is probably closer to what he was trying to get out of it, because it does bring up that flat tone in the fog. Sorry, you got to listen to all this plastic as I open it, guys. All right, so there is the lith, and we've got more of the detail and structure of the clouds coming through, and you can see how this really lightened up quite a bit. So this, I feel, is probably more successful to Sam's vision of the scene when he was taking it, because having spoken to him, at least what little I've spoken to him about his work, he does seem to really pre-visualize what he's doing, and he does this stuff with intent. So this is a decent print, but I don't think this matches what he wanted, and this is much more representative. It is very nice. The warm tones are good. The high contrast is good, and it really breaks this up and gives great separation, as well as in the sky. I'm going to get that in there for you. So very good. Formally, I like the element of this kind of triangle of fog, kind of moving you over across, and then you come back with the point of fog here, up in here. So you really have some good print movement up and through the image. I like this one very much. All right, then we've got one more. Just this paper. All right, one more lith print. There we go. Again, this serves the high contrast really, really well. Or the high contrast serves the subject really well and really makes these wildflowers pop out. I think similar to some of the other ones we've seen, cropping may be our friend. I feel like something like that may be stronger than including the top portion, because this isn't. If the flowers went up more and left this as a negative space, I could see it as a very dynamic framing, and would lead me through the image more. But these white or lighter areas, I don't think are serving the image. They're not balancing it well, and there's not like a clear subject to kind of keep my interest up there. So I want to look in this area. So in that case, I would probably just eliminate that altogether and come in something like that with it. And that part, I think that's all it needs. Like, it doesn't need the rest to be successful. I think this is a very beautiful image all on its own right there, and gives a lot of good movement and energy through the image area. So that's really the only thing I can say about that, because I think it's fantastic otherwise. All right. Ugh. Okay. And please leave comments or ask questions while we're doing this, and I'll come back to them. Otherwise, this could be a very, very long stream if I just keep rambling. But it gives me a direction. So, oh, that's just a folder. Okay, what have we got? All right, there's Allen's. Let's see here. Let's open this up. I didn't include it in my letter, but I'm interested in advice on documenting my changing city and influences at J. Okay. Are you Alan? I want to say so. I am a CRA. I don't know what that means. Yes. Okay. In there. Okay. What is this? I don't know. I just don't know what it is. Oh, oops. Okay, that's fair enough. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm probably interested in developing direction, meaning purpose in photos, drawn to contrast through dichotomy. And it's made on HP5, 35mm D76. So I get questions sometimes, like in the Discord and email and whatnot, of like, should I use developer A or developer B? I intend at some point to do a film developer comparison series. I did some with the prints back during COVID when we were kind of like locked up and didn't really get to go out anywhere. So I couldn't really make more photographs. So I was like, well, let's do something, and we can do something easy because I've got all the ingredients. They're all the same ingredients, different proportion. So I intend to do one of different developer combos, or what am I trying to say? Like, what effect does a developer give using the same film on the same shot? And I've never done that before, so I can't say like what the results would be. But with only a few exceptions, I feel comfortable saying there's probably not a lot of difference from one to the other. You're going to get outliers like something with Rodinal, or maybe some other different developers, but for the most part, D76 versus D23 versus Ilford. I don't even know what it is now. It's not multi-grade. That's the paper one, but I don't know. Any of the multitude of stuff out there, you're probably not going to see any difference. Okay, so this is the image we have. And this seems very much in tune with a lot of contemporary photographers who photograph in kind of the same vein as, what are they called? New topographics. That would be the beginning, or beginning with people like Stephen Shore, going into people like Alex Soth and stuff like that, where they are photographing their surroundings. There tends to be a undercurrent or recurring theme of irony in some of it. Like with this, what we have is a destroyed building behind, or building in construction, I would assume, but clearly in process. It is not a complete building, behind a photograph or an image of the complete building, as though it's a cover, like, ignore the man behind the curtain, here's what we're doing. And I'm thinking specifically of like Stephen Shore's image in Uncommon Places, where there's a billboard of a mountain on the side of a highway in the Midwest where it's flat ground, and that sort of thing. So I very much get that kind of vibe of new topographics. So if that's the kind of work you're interested in doing, in documenting your local home, I would say, yeah, definitely look at Shore, and look at Alex Soth, but really, I think Brian Ulrich would be better. Brian Ulrich did a whole lot of series of photographing abandoned and neglected shopping malls, because he was making commentary on like consumerism and capitalism, and the degradation of malls, and the mall culture, and stuff like that. But he did a bunch of photographs just in his hometown, because he teaches up at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. And so, especially during COVID, he would photograph his town there in Rhode Island, where he lives and teaches. And he was posting a lot of it up on his social media, and it was very much just stuff like this, though he was shooting 8x10 color, but that's just the equipment he uses. Although with that stuff during COVID, may not have been. It may have been digital for all I know. I've not asked him. I've not talked to him in a long time. But yeah, Brian Ulrich, Ulrich. You might pronounce it Ulrich, but I don't think so. I think it's Ulrich, the German pronunciation. Stephen who? Stephen. No, I'm not going to say it because I don't know where you are and if other people can hear. but generally it's Stephen effing Shore. And there's a long story to that from my wife trying to get me to continue with our inside joke. That's a whole different story. That's a story for another time. But yes, I like this image. I think you framed it very, very well. I wouldn't change anything about it. What I would do, and technically, I think it's also a fantastically exposed, developed, and printed image. Don't make any changes on that. I think you need to look at other people in that vein and get some inspiration, and read what they have to say about it. Because like Ulrich, as I said, was very interested in capitalism and consumerism and the end of an era of shopping malls and stuff like that. Whereas Stephen effing Shore, as my wife wants me to say, his Uncommon Places was very much trying to find the quintessential Main Street, and the quintessential downtown and things like that. So very different approach, but not too dissimilar of an aesthetic. So look around at people like that, and I think you'll get a clear idea of what you want to accomplish. Okay. While I'm opening this up, if you have questions, send it in. Who is this from? I cannot pronounce your name with justice. It is M-A-J-D. I don't know if that's Mad. I don't want to mispronounce that with any confidence, so feel free to correct me in that. Thanks for your comments. Looking at those photographers. Yeah, I think you'll like Brian Ulrich. And he's accessible. I mean, he does a lot of work for magazines. So I mean, he clearly works not just at teaching, but out there doing stuff. But he's approachable. You can find his email and ask him about his work, and he'll probably get back to you. He's a nice guy. Oh no, my Band-Aid! Ah! Well, I guess that's gone. Good grief. I'm supposed to open this. Ah, it's an envelope in an envelope. We got envelopeception. Okay. Let's do another one. If there's another envelope in here, no. Got a folder though. Oh my goodness, what did you send me? All right, what are we looking for here? Oh my gosh, we got a novel, man. Okay, thanks for taking a look at your prints. Look forward to the live stream. I hope it doesn't disappoint. Want to describe the process of getting to the final print? Should that inform your feedback? For the airport photo, which we'll find in here. There it is. So, pull it out for you guys. Oh, we've got test strips. Okay. So I think we're looking for technical feedback. So here's the image. Okay. But I have versions of it. So let's take that into consideration. So for that one, the challenge lay in getting a nice silhouette of the people while making the plane the main focal element. As I went through the process, I tried to, oh, sorry, my mustache is like trying to irritate me today. I tried to dodge the top and bottom and burn the plane. I also played with the composition to balance it. Okay, look at that. Okay, let's do that first, and then we'll read into the other one. So what we have here are actually just two images, but different iterations thereof. Okay, so between these three, we're looking at a silhouette of people against the background and keep the background light. So I would say This lighter version is actually probably the best. I feel like you got the best balance of people. I'd actually say I don't think you're done with this print yet. So this print has the lightest sky area. It had the clouds come out more like clouds and not big gray clumps in the sky. You don't want that. You want your clouds to be light and airy, unless they're storm clouds, in which case they have a different look to them. These don't look like black storm clouds. These look like they should have been white and puffy. And so this gives the best look for that. The people, however, are not silhouetted enough, I think, for what you're looking for. I can clearly see this person here, like the strap across their back and stuff like that. And I think you wanted it more stark silhouette, like this one, where they're not quite completely black, but it's getting there. And the light in the camera and everything makes the sky here look light and fluffy, but it's not as much. It's close. Yeah, we might be just about the same. This one's the darkest and most dull for the clouds. Are these the same? They're close to the same. I would say this one is lighter. I've got a little less texture in that middle panel. In this one, whereas I get a little bit more detail in the middle panel here. Saying it that's a little bit darker. So how would we improve this image? A little bit cleaner crop with your borders, for one. And that's just easel, making sure that we've got nice crisp lines. Getting this vertical and cleaned up, making sure these are horizontal. And I have a video on how to change the shape. So if your photograph doesn't have that in the negative, if it's slightly off angle, look for the video I did on adjusting the shape. Not every enlarger has the ability to adjust shape, but if you're able to tilt the easel up off the table, that'll do a lot. And it doesn't take much, a little like a wobble wedge or something, or like a coaster for a drink or something might be enough. But if you're able to tilt that easel up and then stop your lens down for depth of field to get it sharp, you can clean up those straight lines. And I feel like an image like this needs very crisp straight lines, because it's just off enough to seem accidental rather than intentional. When it comes to the tonality, it's going to be hard. If you didn't capture the tonality in the clouds to begin with, it's hard to get them out. If you did, if it's in the negative, I think you just need to really boost your contrast filter up. And a higher filter, like a 4 or 4.5, is going to plunge the shadows deep. And you're going to try to print for the highlight area and get the clouds that like brilliant white, but still with texture. You don't want pure white. So that you get that feeling of cloud, and then just allow all the shadow to just plunge into darkness, into deep silhouette. And I think that may start to give you some of what you're looking for. I would try that. And figure out if you're trying to burn parts of the sky or dodge parts of the sky, and this still has texture. If you're dodging the sky and still getting texture, you might just be underexposed. But what did you say? Dodge the top and bottom and burn the plane. If your sky was coming out too dark, but your people aren't dark enough, you might just be a little underexposed too. It doesn't look like it. You've got detail, I think, in the shadow where you need it. I think you just need a higher filter when you print. That's where I would start. Okay. Next one. For the photo of the roots, let me pull that out for you guys. So we've got this image right here. The challenge lay primarily in getting the details in the highlights to show. I had to resort to a pre-flash for the details to show up. Okay, so you've got too high of a contrast. Yeah, and we've got a hotspot here. I've had that happen before with one of my lenses on large format. And I don't know if it's because of the glare off the roots, if it happened to be something else. That's a challenge. I mean, I would imagine that's a hotspot on the negative, so it's like a very dark center in there. Unless you dodged that area. You don't say if you did or not. If you had to pre-flash to get information there, otherwise it was pure white. Oh, I wonder if that was like sunlight through the clouds or something, through the leaves, and that's just way overexposed. That could be. I could see that happening. Where it was like dappled sunlight, and then that's just kind of what it is. Yeah. What's the best way to support me and the channel? Yeah, I quit Patreon. The channel membership, or and that's like sustaining, because that's the replacement to Patreon, or just the single little thing for a single video. That's great. I'm trying to boost my range of products available, from just like t-shirts to actual things that we can use in our photos or darkroom and make them more functional. Those help too. My wife and I have taken over production of the merchandise, because the company I was using, a company called Teespring, the quality went way down, the prices went way up, and the shipping time was running into like months. So we started doing this ourselves. We have sublimation and vinyl capabilities. So we started doing that. We can get them out faster. We can control the quality and stuff like that. So, and we get more of the profit to benefit the channel. But yeah, I'm not going to use Patreon. They did a whole thing where they're trying to justify, what is it, minor attracted persons, which is just another name for pedophiles. So I won't support Patreon. So YouTube came up with their own, and that's what I use. But yeah, support does help, because that's how I get film, paper developers, stuff like that, for the channel. And I do appreciate that. And then, of course, the ads from YouTube, the ads in this video, I'm sorry if you had to watch some. But that does show up in what we can provide for this channel. So if this is dappled sunlight, back to your print. If this is dappled sunlight, yeah, this is a challenge. You're really just going to have to toast it, like burn the crap out of it with a burning tool. And there's not much more you can do. The pre-flash is basically just an overall gentle burn. It makes the burning more effective, but yeah, you're gonna have to burn that with the light of 1,000 suns to get some information into that. Okay, but overall, like the image and the movement through the image, fantastic. I love it. Just gotta get that hotspot down. The rest of it's great. All right, last one for this individual. What have we got? Okay, Central Park. Please excuse the mark on the negative in the sky. Yeah, it happens. It does. I get them. I understand that. I don't know how it got there. Who knows? The challenge here was dodging the greenery enough to make the boat stand out. To balance the sky, I burned in with a grade 5. Okay, which gave it some lovely contrast. Yeah, it helped. Process feedback. Okay. So let's look at some examples. So this top one is a little flat. Overall, it's just low contrast in general. So we'll move past that. And then you made, I assume, this one much darker, moodier, but a little too dark. We start losing our information here. So these are two. So we've got this guy and then the last one here. Again, we start to lose our dark down through here. This one looks nice. Let's see. Yeah, the burning and dodging is a little inconsistent on this one. You did the burning and dodging better on this one. I think you just toasted this side a little too much because we're starting to lose some of our info. It's not full black yet, but there's not much there to separate from the black. So yeah, I think your last one probably is the best. The sky did come out better. The water looks pretty good. We just got a little heavy on this arc here. This side looks much better. The one previous, it's vignetting a little too much. And I think you were trying to avoid that in this one. And we just went a little overboard on this side. I think like everything in this print, one more attempt, but not as heavy here. By maybe just 10%. I think you got it. I think that's it. You got your final print. Everything else is good. The spots, I don't know. I get those too sometimes. It could be a watermark. Like from the drying. Who knows? Could be agitation in a bubble. I don't know. It can, without seeing the negative, it can be hard to tell. Okay. Don't worry about being late, Chris. All you did was avoid my rambling. Okay. All right. I've got one more. Let's take a drink here. Hello, C222. Complex images with different regions of different levels of exposure and contrast. How does one print test strips for those? So what I do sometimes, if I've got something like that, which granted, it depends on what you shoot, right? Because if you're shooting a lot of flat surfaces, which some of my photographs, if I'm thinking in the modernist vein, tend to be more like surfaces. So I don't have a lot of that. But if you have something like that, then I do what I call a print map. And so I kind of divide the image up into main areas. It could be the foreground, middle ground, background area. It could be, portrait versus background or something. And I will do test strips for those areas. And so I'll kind of tear the paper or cut it in the general shape. Like it's just that section. It may not be a straight cut, could be angled or whatever. And I will make test strips for the best part of that, right? Like the best exposure contrast. And then I'll do the same thing for others and I'll collage them so I can get an idea of like, okay, that means I need to burn the whole thing for another 5 seconds or, whichever, like the whole bottom half, then the top, but then I need to do this area and this area. I tend to print with a single filter. I'm not much of a split grade printer. Like I did a video on split grade printing for those who want to learn. And I've tried it a few times. It doesn't work with my workflow. And 99% of the time, I would say split grade printing is just not necessary. There may be 1 or 2 images where it is better, but it's rare. What I think is more useful is using a higher or lower filter for a burn than for the overall image. So in that case, I'm probably not looking at contrast changes other than am I burning with a 5 or a 4 filter or something like that, versus the 2.5 or whatever I made the main print with. And that's really all that I do. And even then, I don't feel like I need to get into a lot of that in my work. So when I was done with college but hadn't gone to grad school, I worked at a studio as their darkroom printer, because they were still shooting film. And so I made, over that course of 4 years, I did the math, something like 30,000 black and white prints. So I got really good at being able to print, excuse me, print single filter, for a great print, quickly, because I had to get through a lot of prints, a lot of negatives. And it helped, because when I went to grad school, I was a professional printer at that point, and a lot of my classmates were not. They had come straight out of undergraduate, and their printing was not up to my level. And it took me a while to accept the fact that they weren't, because I was like, you know what? They didn't print for 4 years like I did, doing hundreds of prints a week. So I need to be easier on them when we talk about their work. But what that did show me doing all that was split gray just isn't necessary for most things. Different regions. 2 questions. When will we see a follow-up video on your GoPro accessories? Probably never, because did I promise one? I don't remember if I promised one. But I use the GoPro like once a year, maybe, and that's like if I go to a camera swap. And I took the camera with me on the last camera swap, which was last month. I didn't even turn it on. That camera swap is getting so small, and disappointing now. I didn't even record it. And would you recommend the silver base or the CP2 or 3? They are different. They're different beasts, and I use them for different things. So I have a CPA2 machine that has the whole water bath circulation system, lift, and everything. And then I've got the little silver base thing. And the silver base is great for black and white film. Don't use it for color. More on that another time. So I use the CPA2 for color film. For color prints, I do a black or a room temperature anyway. So the silver base is convenient because I get more of that tight little counter space, that I can use, because my CPA takes up my entire sink counter space that I have up in that bathroom. If you're doing a lot of work, film and prints, and you need the temperature control, then get a CPP3, like one of the new ones. And if I can get the money together, I'm going to replace my CPA with the new CPP3, because the motor on mine, I think, is going to die. And getting parts replacements is just not going to happen. For convenience of consistency, and I'm doing black and white, the silver base is perfect. You don't need anything else. It'll work. Skip the bigger machines with the water bath. You'll be fine. So I think it depends on what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be doing with that. So just keep that in mind. They're 2 different machines. The CPP3 is going to do all of it if you do all of it. And if you only do the black and white, just get the silver base. I do think the silver base is very well made. It's expensive for what it is. But I think I'm going to get the years of service and support out of it, that the price would kind of justify. So, all right, last one. Who is this from? This is from Jonathan. Okay. So I've already been talking now for an hour and a half. When I am done with this print, we're going to end the stream. So if you have any other questions, ask them, and I'll get to them before we leave. But this is gonna wrap up today. So any last questions? Now's your chance. Get them on my screen. All right. I'll tell you stories too. You just got to ask me what story you want. Okay, what we got? A couple of large format prints from your local area in Yorkshire. Oh, these came overseas. First one, ruined castle. I assume is this guy right here. Taken on a 5x7 Jabad. I don't know. I've never seen that name. With a 180 5.6 rodent stock, decent lens. An Ilford FP4 developed in ADOX FX39. I've never used FX stuff. The exposure was f32 with 4 seconds. Orange filter used. Photos of Neville Castle, Sheriff Hutton, the former ancestral home of the wife of Richard III. I think I just read recently that Richard III, like if you went back in time, despite all the movies, he wouldn't talk like Patrick Stewart. He probably wouldn't even be able to speak to you in English because he spoke French. Anyway, second photo of the churchyard. This guy right here. Taken in St. Lawrence's Churchyard, Flaxton. It's taken on an Intrepid 4x5, the 135 Semar on T-Max at f32, half second exposure. And again, was developed in FX39. Okay. All right. What it doesn't tell me though, artistic and technical feedback. Okay. So let's look at the first one here. And despite all your packing, somehow this one got bent. Sorry about that. I don't know what they did to it. Because the box isn't bent. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, they folded it. Sorry. I don't know why they do that. But they do. Okay, so we used a filter, and I'm assuming we used a filter to bring out some of the tonality and stuff. What filter did we use? Orange filter. So I would assume an orange filter is used to try to bring out more of the sky. And it looks like you burned to get some of the sky out as well. Because we have, where it's creased, unfortunately, we have definitely darker here than here on the building. So I'd imagine you tried to burn the sky in a little bit. I would probably try a pre-flash, and you can do a masked pre-flash. By masked, I just mean cut some paper or something to kind of like cover up the non-sky area so the flash doesn't dull the contrast on those. But you'll get the, oh, there's Epson. Oh, these aren't darkroom prints. These are inkjet prints. Okay, well, that changes that. So with that, we do need some, I think, darker sky areas that are have some more cloud separation, because I feel like that's probably what you were going for with the filter. And it may be two things. The orange filter, because it's going to be a couple of things. The angle that you're looking at with the sky, right? If you are looking with the sun in the correct direction, the sky is going to be that like really deep blue. And that's going to have the biggest effect from your filter. So the filter will make the sky darker than if you're pointing a little bit more towards the sun or lateral to the sun, where that sky becomes the lighter cyan. or if there's haze in the sky, the filter is going to have far less effect than you anticipate. And so I think that is what's going on here. We don't have the deepest blue part of the sky, but then we also probably have some general cloud cover, because it looks like a sunny day, but it looks like we've got some texture of clouds up here. And so the filter wasn't being as effective at separating the sky as I think maybe you're hoping for. But it did have an effect down here on this stuff, because it really lightened up the foliage compared to like the deep dark areas of the trunk and whatnot. And that's just from a technical standpoint, not the artistic. The other thing you could do is potentially, in combination with the filter, change your development time, lower that a little bit so that you get a little bit less dense area of negative in the sky. Of course, that's going to lower everything tonally a little. And we're talking about zone system stuff there. And if you're not familiar with zone system stuff, it's okay. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not everybody's specialty. And it's something I need to cover. I've been asked to cover it, and I've not made the time. I envision it as a 4-part video series, and it's going to be a lot of prep, which is hard to do with a full-time job sometimes. Aesthetically, in terms of like composition and everything like that, is there anything I would change? Let me use this. Sorry, I'm looking at this way. Sorry, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm thinking about like the crop. Let me pull this back a bit so you can see it better. Do I need all of this information? See, I think I probably would have cropped a little tighter to the building, because all this up here, all this, there's nothing there. None of the information came through, so I don't think we need it. I think we could clean that up a little bit, get a little bit tighter down here. Not to the edge. You don't want to start cutting into the building. So just a little bit over. And then the bottom, like this stuff gets kind of repetitive, and but not like visually separated. So I'd probably come up a little bit closer to this tree trunk, because this almost seems like the important element here. So I would probably tighten that up a little bit too. So just kind of crop the top a little bit, crop the bottom a little bit, get a little bit cleaner on that. Side to side, I think you're fine. I like how this is not centered, and I get the negative space in the sky. So I'd probably just get rid of that, get rid of some of this, and I think you would have a little bit tighter composition. I don't think you should just zoom in equally too, like, and try to keep that 5x7 perspective. Don't worry about that. I think you need this part of the image. I think you need the left to right balance. Just crop this and make it a little bit stubbier, and I think you have the right crop for that, and that'll really get the dynamics flowing a little bit better there. Okay, let's look at the other one. Okay, so this is the other one, and it is a cemetery view. And technically, I think you've got everything here. You've got all the information. Nothing seems flat or dull. I think you have all that. It is a lot of stuff going on. We've eliminated any sort of like big patches of negative space. And so it gets a little busy on the eye, and it doesn't give your eye anywhere to like pause or rest. So it's a very, even though it's a cemetery, there's nothing happening action-wise. It's a very frantic image, just because it has so much of the leaves and the flowers and everything going on, and no pause, no rest for the eye. So just be careful with that. How could that be solved? Maybe time of day, so that we have light, assuming that the location allows for it. If we have later in the day light that comes across the foreground, but leaves the trees in the back in shade so that it comes out still with texture, but maybe dark. And we've got this as our highlight area. I think that sort of thing may help. This middle of the day where everything is evenly lit just gives us so much visual contrast and information that it's hard to put your eyes on something. I think the crop itself is fine. I like the placement of this area versus the top and all the weight, visual weight of the top area. Um, it's just very frenetic and um, leaves it hard to look at for a long time because I don't get that visual rest. So hopefully that helps. I think that potential or that place has potential, and you should go back to it at different times of day and see if you can catch the light at these different times of day and get stuff like that. Okay. Any last questions here? Are X-ray films suitable for silver printing or UV printing? I assume so. There are a lot of people who do it because it's cheap. I've never shot any X-ray film. It is very green or blue sensitive, depending on which kind you buy. And that is going to just affect like the tones of the image and because of the spectral sensitivity. But yeah, people print from them all the time. It should be fine. I know some people have complained about certain types because it can be double-sided. It's not as sharp. But if you're doing alt processing, you're contact printing, and the sharpness there doesn't really affect anything. If you're enlarging it, that's when you might see an issue. Have I done any more printing with the Intrepid Enlarger? No. Right now, it's put aside. I've found locally on Facebook Marketplace a LPL, Saunders LPL Enlarger, which I pointed out in my last video, the April Fool's video, which I just now realized it's been 3 weeks since I made a video. I've been working on one. Silver Grain Classics. I don't get like I'm not a subscriber to Silver Grain, so I don't get their issues. But they interviewed me just as like a little bio interview. So I don't know if any of you all have gotten that, if that's out, and if that is in there. But they asked me to write an article for them, and I'm wrapping that up. So I've been focusing on that, and the content of that article will be a larger video as well. I'm not going to go over what that is, but today. But that content, I think, it's a video I've been wanting to make for a while. So that stuff has taken my time, and I've not published a video for it. But as I showed in the last video, the April Fool one, I have the LPL. It's a nice enlarger. I haven't really had a chance to use it yet with what I've been working on. And if any of you all have one of those, I found the negative carriers are hard to get, so you can buy them from me. That's one of the things I've been trying to offer to make money for this channel. That's more useful in the darkroom is stuff like that. But I know some members of my Discord also make negative carriers and stuff, 3D printed and make it a business. So I'm trying not to compete with them by overlapping the products. So the LPL was a new one. So that's available in a variety of different formats and border sizes and whatnot. Or it can be customized if you have something custom. And I may overlap with one product since I had the DeVere. I may start producing those too, because I'll probably make a bunch of different things for myself. And might as well offer those. But mostly for on the Discord, he goes by Moodog. But Tim at Bit by Bit Photo makes a bunch of stuff, and I don't want to compete with him. I don't want to try to steal his customers. So I'm trying not to overlap with him, but the LPL stuff I do. So that enlarger looks like it's going to be pretty good. Everything seems to work on it. I had to do a little bit of cleaning up to get the filters to run smoothly because it's a color enlarger. But no, the Intrepid, I don't know. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to sell it. to somebody who can put it to better use, or see about maybe working with someone who can make a better LED panel for it, and much better controls. Like the control box for it has a lot of potential to be really, really good. Not the LED bulbs themselves; those suck. They need to be replaced. But the control panel, the control box, it just needs a completely different function software design. And I've got some ideas on that I need. But I'm not an LED software person, so I've got to find somebody who's good at that. And then I think together we can make a really good head. And if it works really well, then maybe we can offer that as a like upgrade replacement for people who bought one. But we'll see. I've got to find somebody who knows how to do LEDs. What formats do I like the most? So I never shoot 35 millimeter for myself. I shoot it for this channel all the time because I know you as viewers, most of you shoot 35. So I do a lot of stuff in 35 for the channel, but personally, I never shoot it. I like the little bit more square shape of 6x7 or 4x5. So I have, for medium format, I just recently got, excuse me, a Omega Rapid 100, which is a Mamiya made camera. And it's a lot of fun. I'm still trying to finish the very first roll. I'm running through it. Just can't make time to get out because all the great light I see is right when we need to put our kids to bed. So as the summer light extends, I'm hoping to get out after we put them down and finish off this roll, do a video about it. But it's been a really fun medium format camera. I like it. Much easier to carry around than my RB67, which is just a heavy beast. But my favorite format in general is 8x10. I like shooting with the big camera. It's fun. It's exactly my jam. And I like it more than 4x5. I like the bigger screen, especially now that I'm getting in my mid 40s and my up close vision is not as great. So it's a good thing I've got that 8x10 and larger, although right now I can't use it. What else have we got here? What do you have to say about printing thin negatives? If you can go out and shoot better negatives, that's what I would do. Thin negatives are very, very difficult to save. There's not a whole lot you can do because the information is just not there. As opposed to dense negatives, it's there and you have to print through it. Underexposure is just almost impossible to redo. So if it's something you can reshoot, go out and learn from the first roll and try to do it better. If you can't reshoot it, learn from the first roll and try and do it better. That's the best advice I can give on underexposed or thin negatives. If I could pick a piece of hardware that should be manufactured again, what would it be? Oh, wow. Probably film holders, large format film holders. And I know there are places like Chamonix is making them, but I mean, who wants to spend $400 on a single holder? Fidelity, unfortunately, they ended up, nobody knew this, I think, but it was like a one-man operation and he retired. And he tried to put his business up for sale, and the only person interested was Calumet right when Calumet went out of business. And so we lost probably the best affordable film holders out there. I mean, other ones are good. Toyo's good, but they're expensive. And I feel like Fidelity was really good, but they were much more affordable for people. So, and now these wood ones or carbon fiber or, whatever is coming from these new brands, they're more boutique and they're just outrageously priced, and becomes a real problem for people trying to get into large format. Have you considered online courses on your website to fund the channel? Not necessarily online courses. Maybe working with either the photo department at University of Kentucky, or one of the two community darkrooms here, and doing in-person workshops. Because teaching, I think, an online course is that's just my channel, right? There's nothing that would be offered different. I'd just be charging people to watch it. I don't like that idea. Yes, I appreciate people being willing to help fund the channel, but I don't like putting a paywall to the information. Now that's different than an in-person workshop where we are now using a space and my time to give one-on-one or 1-on-5 or whatever the size group is instruction. So I'm considering something like that, but I've got to find a place to do it that has enough enlargers and space for a group of people. But then also making sure that it's quality of content, that anybody who does pay money to come and do it, and will probably have to travel because you all don't live in central Kentucky like I do, other than two of you that I know. I want to make it worth your time and effort. So it's something I'm thinking about, but nothing I have yet. But honestly, that sort of thing wouldn't be to fund the channel. That would be because I want to stop doing my day job and just teach you all full time. So ideas for ways to intentionally damage negatives before developing or printing, such as soaking in vinegar or alcohol before developing other such means. Looking for ideas to get unique effects. There was somebody who was doing something like that and getting their work out there. I don't know, because vinegar is just stop bath. It's not going to do anything to your negatives. It'll damage the developer first if you don't wash it off. Other kind of chemicals, though. I mean, I guess it depends on the damage that you're trying to do, because really what you need to look at, I think, is damaging the negatives after processing, either through like heat shocking the emulsion to separate it from the base and causing effects like that, and bubbling and scratching. That's going to be more, I think, feasible and more possible and controllable, even though it's still going to be chaos. And then there's also ways to do that to a print. What is the name of that process? I did it before. It lifts the emulsion off the paper and it becomes very flowy where you let the chemical sit, especially in the shadow areas, and then you can manipulate it. It's got a French name. Oh, I haven't done it in almost 20 years, so I don't remember the name. If it comes to me, I'll mention it. If it comes to me, I'll try to do a demonstration of it if I can remember how. I have to see if I still have the paperwork from when I was a student and did it. What's your opinion of tripod collecting? Do you have a particular favorite? Oh, that's from my wife. Because I have like 9 tripods. Do I have a favorite? No, that's why I'm still trying to get more. And what is my opinion on tripods? The more tripods you have, the happier you are in life. Okay. You shoot 5x7. Oh, I think that's just telling me because I was looking at somebody's work. I've shot 5x7. When I was in grad school, what I was shooting was my 8x10 camera, but I had a 5x7 reducing back, a 4x5 reducing back, and a 2¼ by 3¼ reducing back. So imagine a little ground glass this big, size of a business card, on the back of an 8x10 camera. And so I shot all those different formats and made contact prints from it. And yeah, it's a nice format. I just it's a little too long and rectangular for me for what I do mostly. Have you printed with X-ray or the chromatic film? No, I've not shot any X-ray film. I know a lot of people that do, and they like it, but I never have. Though I'm looking. I need to finish my ultra large format camera, and that may be the only option I have that's affordable. Hello from Ukraine. Can we have our own production of high quality? Oh, we have our own production of high quality chemicals for all process. Maybe you'll be interested in looking at the price list. Maybe. Send me a link and I'll look at it. I am looking, I mean, different processes like that Sov color, if that's the Soviet process. I'm interested in just seeing what it is and how to do it, maybe talking about it. When it comes to C41, one thing I would like to do is a C41 brand comparison of things like Kodak once it's available again, versus like Cinestill versus Bellini and stuff like that. So, yeah, maybe so. Yeah, and then the last thing here. Did I miss any? Oh, I guess with the what formats and what camera. I didn't answer the camera. I answered the format. So for medium format, I'm really liking that Rapid Omega 100. It's just a really good size and weight for a medium format negative. For 4x5, I only have two. One is a Crown Graphic, so it's just a big negative, but it's still just a point and shoot camera, basically. And then I have like a Cinar monorail, and neither of those are conducive to the kind of workflow that I do when I photograph outside. So I've looked at things like Intrepid and Tachihara and stuff like that. I haven't settled on anything, and I don't have any plans to shoot anything with that. So I don't have a favorite 4x5. 8x10, I've got a Cinar monorail, and I've got my Kodak Master. I love the Kodak Master. It's so fast to use, so fast to set up, so conveniently sized, and well built. That thing is going to be buried with me when I die. So that's my favorite camera. All right, and I believe that has answered all your questions. We have talked about every print. I'm going to look at the analytics when we're done here and see if this was worth doing again. And if so, we'll see if we can do one in 6 months or less and give you all time to come up with some prints. So thank you all for spending an afternoon with me. And thank you for sending some prints for me to look at and talk about. I hope those of you that sent work, you got something useful and constructive so that you can go back and make even better prints to match your vision more clearly. And then if you have any other questions, yeah, just come ready to the next live stream and we'll see if we can answer some. So thanks a lot. I'm going to end the stream, and hopefully soon I will have a video out for you all to watch. Thanks a lot.